Friday night, everybody. Johnny Guns investigation. How's it going? November 3rd. Beautiful night. Hope you guys are ready for your weekend. Hope you guys have good plans and having fun. So tonight we're going back to Moscow, Idaho. Some big things happening there. November 13th, 2022. The Kohlberger case, the alleged killer. So they have some new evidence going on right now on the Kohlberger trial, and it's pretty strong. So if you guys do remember going back to the Kohlberger trial, he's the alleged serial killer who's in jail right now for murdering the 4 college students at 1122 King Road. Brian Kohlberger, who was also a college student, not too far from the Idaho college. He was in Washington. Wasn't too far, about 15-20 minute drive. But Kaylee, Madison, Zania, and Ethan, 3 girls, 1 boy, college students, in a off-campus home, were brutally murdered, allegedly by Brian Kohlberger. A lot of ins and outs on this, as I brought to the stories to you guys. A lot of ins and outs on this because all the college kids living together, partying together, best friends. We had Kayla and Madison were best friends since childhood, always hanging out. And the sad thing about this whole story is going back to finding out that it was a very well-known drug house in that college facility area there. And all the kids, college students, and all the surrounding colleges and students know to go there to get drugs. Whatever. People party when they go to college. But the thing is Kohlberger, the alleged serial killer, Brian Kohlberger, killing all 4 of these students in that house, gaining entrance, and murdering them with a knife in 9 minutes. So now in the trials and the hearing that's all going on, getting ready for the trial, because it's coming up on a year already, which I can't believe, a year already. This happened November 13th, 2022, and here we are. It's coming up on a anniversary. We hate to say anniversary, but so the defense was trying to bring all different kinds of new things to the court, which was all declined. They were trying to decline the cameras being in the courtroom. They are going to be cameras in the courtroom, which is great. And now the big news on going back to this Brian Kohlberger trial and the 4 college students being killed in Moscow, Idaho at 1122 King Road. Okay. They were going to destroy that house. Okay. They were just going to demolish that whole house. Okay. But thank goodness the courts, they just stopped. The FBI, the law enforcement, the courts, and everybody, they stopped that because they knew they were going to need to go back into that home, not for maybe new evidence. Who knows? Okay. So anyway, that is the case. So now what they're going to do to help the jury, okay, this is all for the jury, okay, to give them a better idea on what happened that night at 4:15 to 4:20 in the morning in 1122 King Road, on how Brian Kohlberger was able to kill all these kids in 9 minutes. Get in, do his kill, and get out. I always speculated whether it was him or not, but who knows? I mean, this guy is not a kid. If you look at him, he's not trained to do things like this, but you just don't know. I mean, we don't know him, it could be. My feelings were that it had something to do with the drugs and it was a revenge. I don't know. Nobody knows. It's all up in the air. It's all speculation. But we're going to stick to who they have in jail, going on trial. Evidence with blood on the sear of the knife, which this is all going back to now them going back to 1122 King Road to where the murders took place. The FBI is went back there, fully went over everything hand and foot again, looking for any type of new evidence, hairs, fibers, anything else that they can find. And then they're going to set it up for a Faro 3D technology reenactment of the home for the jury. It's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be like Hollywood. They're going to set this 3D, which they've used before in the Faro system, and it's a 3D technology being able to go ahead inside that house and reenact the whole scene in a 3D technology. So being able to see it from all angles, unlike it was happening live. And once they do that, they're able to put together exactly how he was able to do what he did, not leave any evidence except for that one little blood spot on the sleeve of the knife. So it's going to give a chance of the jury to see exactly what happened that night in 3D technology, which is awesome because that can really help pinpoint who, how, when, where, and why. Okay, and that's the other thing. Why did he kill these people? What was the motive? Jealousy? Did he have some kind of connection with one of the girls? Was he going in to buy drugs? Because we know Kohlberger was involved in some drug usage, had some issues going on in his life. It's just a lot of things coming up right now. But now the FBI is back in that home to see if they can find any more evidence. That was, it's always good to keep going over and over and over, and then get ready to set the house up for a reenactment on that 3D technology, which they're going to have, fake bodies and things laid out, and just a whole scene reenacted for the jury. And I do believe also too that the jury will visit that house and do a walkthrough of that house to see the crime scene and how everything was, and how he was able to get into the home, up the stairs, up the other, come down, go through the glass doors, and do all this in 9 minutes without, practicing being in the home, knowing the layout of the home. But this case is unbelievable. And again, it goes back to a heartbreak of 4 college students, losing their life, and then Dylan and Bethany were the 2 survivors of that were there in the home as well. And Dylan being one who saw the killer leaving the home and was able to identify him in black mask and bushy eyebrows. And then the other thing that puzzles me is after the murder, next day, it took 8 hours for the other college students and witnesses there in the home to call the police. Okay, but that's the story I had before. But the 3D technology is going to be unbelievable. I have a story tonight that's going to tell everything about it. We have a special agent FBI on here who's actually used this 3D technology and another murders to solve and to bring to the courts to show exactly what happened in the scene, because that 3D technology shows everything real time and in all angles, so we can pinpoint exactly how this guy, who the alleged murderer, Kohlberger, who is a criminology PhD, not a trained assassin. But hey, let's watch this video together, guys. Don't forget, Johnny Guns Investigation. Hit the like. Go ahead and subscribe. It's free. Bring you everything whenever I have a show on. It'll alert you. And let's chat. Let's chat about this. This is probably going to be one of the largest court days in a long time. 4 college students dead, 2 survived. This guy did all this in 9 minutes. So let's watch the new evidence, what they're going to do in this home, what they're going to bring to the jury to put this guy behind bars if he's guilty. So let's go ahead and see what we got here. Bam. Bam.
Nearly 1 year after the quadruple homicide that shocked the nation, FBI agents are headed back to the scene of the crime in the University of Idaho murders.
They're going to take one last crack at this, so to speak, and they're going to be able to argue that this was a fresh look, that they didn't do anything. They're not retesting the same stuff. This is new stuff that they're testing.
It's a case Law and Crime Network has followed since the beginning, when the bodies of 4 college students were found brutally murdered on November 13th of last year. All 4 victims were students at the University of Idaho in Moscow. For weeks, we covered the developing story as authorities gave few clues about the investigation. But in late December, suspect Brian Kohberger was arrested and later charged in all 4 murders.
It alleges that the defendant, Brian C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th of 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did unlawfully enter a residence located at 1122 King Road, Moscow, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder.
Now, FBI agents are back at the King Road crime scene for what's likely the final time. Former FBI agent Colin Schmidt tells Law and Crime Network the investigation will be strategic ahead of Kohberger's jury trial.
It appears that they wanted the evidence response team of the FBI, since they're having this pause in the court case, to go in there and start doing some 3D modeling of the crime scene.
Prosecutors say Kohberger is responsible for the stabbing deaths of Zana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez. Investigators used DNA recovered from a knife sheath left at the crime scene to connect Kohberger to the case. He was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania before he was extradited to Idaho.
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohberger in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on a warrant for murders of Ethan, Zana, Madison, and Kaylee.
Since then, Kohberger's been held at the Latah County Jail in Moscow, only about a mile and a half from the murder scene. He was set to stand trial last month, but that was delayed indefinitely after prosecutors argued they needed more time to create models of the home to present to jurors. Schmidt says that's what this new investigation is all about.
The FBI ERT, evidence response team, is going in there and they want to get a really perfect 3D model of what happened. So when they have to present all this evidence in court, the jury is going to really know exactly what happened.
As Schmidt explains, investigators will use the Faro technique, 3D technology that, according to its website, quote, allows you to capture complete, accurate views of the on-scene evidence and generate photorealistic 360-degree views of the space. Schmidt says the FBI has been utilizing this technique for years.
I was part of the San Bernardino shooting investigation back in 2015 as a supervisor. And during that investigation, our evidence response team actually went in, and unfortunately they had to do this with the bodies still in place. And they set up lasers, and they were using the Faro technique, or the Faro equipment back then. And basically what that means is they're using LiDAR technology to actually create a 3D model of the crime scene, and then so that it can be presented in court. So it was done in 2 phases, one with the bodies in place, and then once all the bodies were removed from the San Bernardino shooting site, they did it again to make sure they had an accurate depiction of actually what happened.
For the University of Idaho crime scene, Schmidt tells us they'll use the Faro technique to collect images and measurements.
So using LiDAR, believe it or not, we have LiDAR on our phones. So it's actually this little button right here on our iPhones, and it's used basically, and what LiDAR stands for is light detection and ranging technology. And it's used for 3D crime scene reconstruction, but for our purposes on phones, we use it for low light photos to basically get an autofocus.
But investigators will have to work fast. The University of Idaho that owns the home agreed to open it to FBI agents for only 2 days, October 31st and November 1st.
2 days means 48 hours. So they'll be in there for 48 hours. They'll be in there round the clock. They have almost limitless resources. So in this case, if they need to bring in teams from LA, from Seattle, from New York, all these teams have the same training, and then some of them have specialized training. So there's no doubt that they'll stay in there, and 2 days obviously the FBI wants 5 days or 10 days, but in 2 days, they will plan for it and make sure they have the appropriate resources there to get the job done.
As Law and Crime Network reported, the university intends to demolish the home, but those plans were stalled back in January when the defense motioned to preserve the crime scene. Family members of the victims agree with this move. A statement from the Gonzalez family and Jeff Kernodle, the father of Xana, reads in part, quote, "As the family has stressed from the beginning of the investigation, the King Road house is one of the most critical pieces of evidence in the case.
Number
We are
one.
grateful that the University of Idaho listened to the family's concerns and delayed the demolition of the home." Isn't that the whole point of not destroying evidence?
That's it.
You may not know if you need it until later, or it may become more important once a jury hears evidence in the case. According to Schmidt, jurors are the driving force in this new investigation. He says prosecutors likely feel the 3D model is vital to their case.
This
Definitely.
was such a horrific crime. The prosecutors there, they want to get it right, and you only get one chance in front of a jury to get it right. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression.
No.
So they have this opportunity to put this evidence in front of the jury that is going to be absolute precise depiction of what happened, so the jury understands how horrific this was and how he did what he did, because there is quite a few questions about, well, how could he go in and do these things, and the survivors didn't hear him or didn't understand or didn't step up and stop him from doing it.
Because they
So
were
this 3D
wasted.
model is going to show the jury,
They
well, this
were
is how he
wasted.
did it. This is how he was able to get away with doing these horrific things without anybody hearing him as he was basically executing his victims.
Schmidt says information collected during this new investigation.
But the
could help
screaming that was
enhance
heard
his
across the
perspective
street,
for
how didn't they
future
hear it in the
jurors.
house?
The most important thing for a juror
From
is
the
to
ring
understand
camera.
context, especially in a murder investigation or murder scene. So apparently there was a sheath, I believe, that was found, and the juror needs to see how that sheath, where the sheath was found in conjunction with the bodies, so they can make that connection, because everything is layered, because the sheath led to his identification using
Yes.
forensic genealogy. And then why would a sheath be there? You know, all these questions, because
just a little
ultimately
piece of
the
blood
objective
there.
of the FBI ERT is to anticipate any questions that the jurors might have, and answer those questions before they even come into the juror's mind.
But more than just viewing a model of the King Road home, experts say jurors could be taken to the scene of the crime.
And
Oh,
I
they
anticipate
definitely
that's
will.
going to happen, and there's going to be an argument by the defense not to see this 3D modeling
Oh, the
before they
prosecuting
walk through, because
attorneys
then
are going all out
the
on
defense
it.
is going to say they're being biased by what the FBI's depiction of the crime scene. So I'm sure the jurors are going to want to see what happened there. They're going to walk through. They're only going to see basically completely empty rooms. I mean, the carpet's going to be ripped up because the FBI is going to pull out of that carpet, take it back to the lab, and go through it in a microscopic manner. So they're not, in my opinion, they're not going to get a lot of context from these empty rooms. I think the 3D modeling is going to give them a lot more context. But I anticipate that even though there's going to be argument why you're not going to get anything out, I think the jurors still want to go just to see, just in their own mind, hey, what really happened?
But long before jurors would ever set foot in the house, investigators will use this time to look for new evidence.
Now, the first phase of this is the ERT of the FBI is going to go in. They're going to do another search, and they're going to look for hairs, follicles, any DNA, anything that might be missing, any microscopic pieces of evidence that they might be able to draw another connection to the person that's on trial right now. Then after that, then they'll start setting up their equipment and the LiDAR technology, and then they'll start creating their 3D models of what happened in that house.
What is the probability that they find something almost a year after these murders? You were
Why
talking
not?
about
It
microscopic
happens all
hairs
the
or
time.
some sort of evidence. I mean, is that likely that they could have passed over it the first couple times that they were investigating?
It is likely, depending on and I'm giving the lawyer answer, it depends. So it depends on what level of evidence response team they had to go in there the first time.
Schmidt believes this will be the final time investigators collect anything from the home.
So obviously I'm biased to the FBI's ERT. They're, in my opinion, the best in the world. If they were used the first time, there's a very high probability they were going to get 99% of the evidence. You never get 100% because it's simply
Let's go see if they can find that little 1%.
So the likelihood that they're going to find more evidence is fairly low because it's already been gone through several times. Plus, when you add in the concept of transference, then if there was any evidence in there, it may have been destroyed, or it may have been basically tainted, so to speak, because then you're going to have other transference from investigators, their hairs and follicles, their things that might be in there. And then when you have that, essentially nullifies anything else you find in there, because then there's a built-in argument that that anything you find in there was brought in versus it being there before the investigators got there.
The nearly 1 year since the murders makes evidence collection more difficult, Schmidt says. But the same goes for the initial investigation. According to court documents, a surviving roommate, Dylan Mortensen, labeled in the affidavit as DM, said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you," just before 4:30 on the morning of the murders. The court document goes on to say Mortensen saw the suspect, describing, quote, the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. At the time, Mortensen said she stood in a frozen shock phase. It wasn't until hours later, at 11:58 a.m., the 911 call for the murders came in.
I don't understand that.
That initial time
Don't
lapse could have
understand
caused
that.
issues.
The longer the time elapses between the crime and when professionals get there to search, there's a higher probability that the scene is going to be tainted with people walking in there that don't know what they're doing. They're potentially moving bodies, moving sheets. What else, could happen? We don't know. I don't know what happened between the time of the crime and the time 911 was called. I can only suspect.
She heard somebody whispering, "I'm here to help you," but she didn't hear
non-law
people
enforcement that
screaming
found
for
these
their
victims
lives.
panicked, and they didn't know what to do.
Don't
They're
agree
not
with
law
that,
enforcement. They're not going to think about preserving a crime scene. They're going to, number one, they're going to think about how they preserve their own lives. Is the bad guy still there? So to answer your question, yes, that the 2 or 3 hours it took between the time of the crime and the time that the call was made, there was likely a lot of transference going on. And that's something that the FBI is going to try to overcome, that concept or argument by the defense, by doing this crime scene reconstruction and being able to tell the jury, okay, if there was any transference, it was minimal, because this is exactly what appeared to have happened.
But Schmidt says if there's anything left to be found at the crime scene, FBI investigators will find it.
I think it really comes down to the FBI. My biased opinion is the best evidence response team in the world. They are the ones that they train everybody else in the world as well, and they have the lab, as well as they have teams there that they may or may not fly out, as well as all 56 field offices have an ERT.
It's unbelievable.
And this is the type of stuff that the FBI, frankly, was created for, is to give that level of expertise that local law enforcement just doesn't have or access to.
As of now, Kohberger's trial is delayed indefinitely. And because of a court-ordered gag order,
guys.
we won't learn more about the investigation from prosecutors or law enforcement.
Excellent video. Excellent video. So, let's talk here a little bit. So there's the new evidence. 3D technology is going to be brought into the courts for the jury to go ahead and take a look at exactly what happened that night on November 13th, 2022 at the crime scene. Did this Kohlberger guy, was he able to pull this off by himself in 9 minutes? Hey, we're all going to find out. The defense attorneys must be going ape shit on this, okay? But hey, the prosecutors are doing great, because they had to start pulling some things out, and they are. They have that 3D technology is going to be great. All right. So going back into the home the night of the murders, okay? So, man, and I understand these girls were there. They survived. Thank God, okay? Thank God. But what the hell, man? What the hell? So you can hear somebody whispering, I'm here to help you, don't worry. But you don't hear somebody screaming for their lives, getting their throats cut and getting cut up and fighting for their lives, but you don't hear that screaming. But the neighbors across the way, the videos that I played for you guys about three weeks ago on the ring cam, hearing the screaming. And then the girl that was on the patio smoking a cigarette, hearing all this screaming, saying it sounded like somebody getting mauled by a bear. But nobody in the house heard that. But they damn sure heard somebody whispering, I'm here to help you. Don't worry. This is all crazy, crazy crap, man. Sorry to say this, okay? They survived a harsh thing. I understand. But goddamn, reality has to sit in here. How in the hell did they not hear anything? I'll never understand that. Never. And then they wait till the next day to call the police. You went into shock that long? This doesn't sound right. But that's for the FBI. That's for the investigators. That's for the prosecuting attorneys to come up and figure this out. And let's see if Kohlberger did it. Now, another story here. Kohlberger, Pennsylvania. His father is a whack job, man. He is a nut job. He's been investigated. He had to go to court just not too long ago on a missing persons investigation. Now, also the neighbor in Pennsylvania of Kohlberger's father, who, I don't know if y'all remember this, back when all this was going on and Kohlberger's father was being followed by the FBI, and so was Kohlberger, Brian. And he came from his house, went over to Pennsylvania to his dad's house, and to throw Kohlberger to throw his trash out in the neighbor's trash. Do you guys remember that? Well, I do. So that's another big thing that's going on. What's going on there? So now that neighbor, house is for sale, getting the hell out of that neighborhood, tired of all this crap going on the market. So if anybody's looking for a house in Pennsylvania, there's one right there next to the Kohlbergers. But anyway, let's see what happens. 3D technology, unbelievable. The way they're going to be able to pinpoint the way this murder was, well, allegedly Kohlberger going there and murdering all 4 of these kids in 9 minutes. Going in, getting in, doing his thing, and getting out in 9 minutes. And and I played the tape for you guys a couple of weeks ago too, on all the timelines. Me and True Crime Lounge with Becky, we played all the timelines that we had for you guys, matching everything. It was 9 minutes. This guy was in and out of there, whoever did this crime, in 9 minutes. Tell me what you guys think. I mean, let's talk about this. This is something. This is going to be one of the biggest trials ever. I mean, and now there's going to be cameras in there for us to see this 3D technology. Well, I hope we can, because the judge has limitations on what he's going to show out into the public. He'll determine what's able to be shown. But you know, I'm just excited, and I just want to know exactly why these girls, Dylan and Bethany, didn't hear anything. You know, and why they waited so long for the next day to call the police. And then also, guys, we can't forget this, that next day of the murder, when the bodies were found and the murder happened, other kids were called to come over, and they're trampling all over this. They didn't tell you that. There was 6 other kids there outside, seen by witnesses across the street, smoking joints, smoking cigarettes, sitting right outside. They were all through that crime scene. This is a mess, okay? So let's just hope this 3D technology now will help bring it to the court and figure out what's going on. Because this one is up here, here, up and down. So let's figure this out. Because again, we have to go back to Kaylee, Madison, Zinnia, and Ethan's families. They need closure. They want this over with. They want to know exactly what happened. And that's the main thing here, folks. Closure and being able to accept and move on if you can, okay? Johnny Gunn's investigation, Friday night, guys. Beautiful Friday night. Weekend's here ahead of us. It's November 3rd. You guys make sure you hit the like, subscribe, comment, and have a great weekend, guys. And don't forget, be safe out there. You guys have a good one.